every guitar has a happy spot where it rings naturally. And it's a case per case basis. You can't just, paint in broad strokes.
Joe Bonamassa has built a career on reverence. A child prodigy turned blues statesman, he has played with giants, studied every riff, and carried the torch of tradition into the modern age. His respect for the instrument is total, bordering on sacred. But that respect has a shadow. In the guitar world, worship and rivalry are twins. For every player he admired, there were others he could not abide. Not because of speed, not because of fame, but because, in Bonamassa's view, they betrayed the very essence of the guitar, reducing it from vessel to vanity. His tastes are sharp, uncompromising. He does not flatter, he judges. And when he decides a guitarist crossed the line, too much flash, too little soul, too much ego, not enough craft, he does not forget. Because for Joe Bonamassa, the guitar is not a toy. It is a vessel for truth. And anyone who abuses it, he names them plainly and without hesitation. Here are the 6 guitar players Joe Bonamassa admitted he hated the most, and why their names still linger on his blacklist. Number 6, Yngwie Malmsteen. Some players chased the lightning. Yngwie Malmsteen bottled it. His neoclassical shredding made audiences gasp, but for Bonamassa, it felt hollow. He saw not expression but excess, dazzling technique with little restraint. As Joe once remarked, speed without taste is noise, not music. To him, Malmsteen embodied a distortion of the guitar's role, skill elevated above soul. In the 1980s, Malmsteen erupted with rising force, turning Bach-inspired speed into a rock spectacle. His Stratocaster, scalloped fretboard, and rapid harmonic runs defined shred guitar for an entire generation. Audiences were stunned. Yet for Bonamassa, this was not the guitar's natural language. It was excess. He often compared Malmsteen's barrage to a fireworks show, dazzling but fleeting. Bonamassa always turned back to the masters. B.B. King, Albert Collins, Eric Johnson, players who bent a single note until it broke your heart. By contrast, Malmsteen's cascades sounded detached. Joe once said, "A guitar solo should feel like a voice breaking, not an exercise in gymnastics."
I know people use super low action, they get great sound out of it. So again, this is just one man's opinion.
Malmsteen's influence is undeniable. His command of sweep picking and harmonic minor runs inspired legions. But for Joe, influence did not excuse imbalance. Songs like Black Star and Far Beyond the Sun dazzled with speed, but left little air for silence or space. A critic once observed, Malmsteen never played a slow song he could not turn into a race. That line could have been written by Bonamassa himself, because for Joe, the guitar's magic lies between the notes, in breath, tension, and release. Without that, music becomes spectacle instead of story. Malmsteen chased precision. Bonamassa chased humanity. And that difference, sharp as a bent string, explains why Yngwie Malmsteen was first on his blacklist. Number 5, John Mayer. Bonamassa's relationship with Mayer has always been complicated. On one hand, Mayer brought blues phrasing to a mainstream pop audience. On the other, Joe bristled at what he saw as dilution, slickness, branding, image, everything wrapped around the guitar like packaging. Bonamassa preferred grit. In interviews, he has hinted that Mayer was a great marketer who happened to play guitar, a label that carried more sting than praise.
That his heart can stand, dream of ways to throw it out.
Mayer broke through in the early 2000s with soft pop hits like Your Body is a Wonderland, then pivoted to blues credibility with the John Mayer Trio. Songs such as Gravity and Slow Dancing in a Burning Room earned him critical acclaim, proving he could channel emotion through tone and restraint. But for Bonamassa, the leap from pop idol to bluesman always felt calculated. He once remarked, "The blues is not a costume you put on. You either live it or you do not.
You're 7 years old and you're going, why am I have to listen to this very, 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 very long song? You know, Thick as a Brick is 37 minutes.
Joe's critique was not about ability. He acknowledged Mayer's skill and phrasing. It was about intention. To him, Mayer embodied the modern paradox. A guitarist with chops, yet packaged by the industry in a way that diluted the raw essence of the blues. Where Bonamassa admired artists who clawed their sound from sweat-soaked bars, he saw Mayer's journey as polished, a brand before it was blood. A music journalist once wrote, "Mayer gave the blues a face on MTV, but not its scars." That line mirrors Bonamassa's frustration. Blues stripped of hardship, repackaged as lifestyle. For Joe, Mayer represented the blurred line between art and marketing. And while millions loved the crossover, Bonamassa remained unmoved. In his world, the guitar does not sell an image. It bleeds truth. That is why John Mayer makes his blacklist, not for lack of skill, but for lack of grit. Number 4, Eddie Van Halen. It may shock some, but Bonamassa has never hidden his discomfort with Eddie Van Halen's dominance. He did not hate the man, he hated the culture that followed. After Van Halen, every teenager wanted to tap, shred, and copy the fireworks. For Bonamassa, it marked a decline in subtlety. He once said, "We lost the bends, the spaces, the moans." In his eyes, Van Halen's genius birthed an era that forgot the blues. When Eruption arrived in the late 1970s, it redefined the guitar. Two-handed tapping, dive bombs, searing tone, it was revolution in a single solo. Eddie's fingerprint spread across every garage and stage. But to Bonamassa, this was not growth. It was distraction. He once remarked, "After Eddie, the guitar became a sport. Points for speed, no points for soul."
What you should be playing in that very moment on that very bar, you're too late.
Okay.
You're actually way too late.
Joe respected Eddie's originality, but bristled at its aftermath. Generations of players chased pyrotechnics instead of feel. Where B.B. King could break hearts with 3 notes, the Eddie-inspired wave often crammed dozens into a single bar. To Bonamassa, storytelling was sacrificed for spectacle. A rock critic once wrote, "Van Halen gave us the future, but at the cost of the past." That mirrored Joe's unease. Eddie's brilliance reshaped the guitar, yet overshadowed the phrasing that made it human. For Bonamassa, Eddie Van Halen symbolized both brilliance and burden. He did not despise the man. He despised the way culture turned him into a template. In Joe's world, the guitar is not about fireworks. It is about fire. And that is why Eddie Van Halen takes a place on his blacklist. Number 3, Kirk Hammett. Metallica's lead guitarist may be beloved by millions, but for Bonamassa, Kirk Hammett represented a kind of anti-craft. He bristled at the loose intonation, the reliance on wah pedal, the lack of precision. Where others heard rage and freedom, Joe heard sloppiness. More than once, he dismissed Hammett's solos as the same wah exercise over and over, a cardinal sin for someone who worships variety and taste. Hammett's role in Metallica is undeniable. From Ride the Lightning to Master of Puppets, he helped shape some of the most iconic metal records ever made. His solos were aggressive, drenched in wah, and delivered with urgency that fans equated with raw power. But to Bonamassa, they lacked architecture. He once said, "A solo should take you somewhere." Kirk's often sounded like he never left the driveway.
I've seen them throw them in R9s and 335s, and I've seen them in Epiphones, and I even saw one guy who bought a set so he could put the lead pickup in his Strat.
Joe's frustration was not personal, it was philosophical. For him, the guitar was about storytelling, tension and release, bending emotion into melody. Hammett's style, with its rushed runs and repeated patterns, felt closer to improvisation without intent. Fans loved the chaos, but Joe heard the absence of control. Critics have long debated Hammett's place in the guitar pantheon. One writer quipped, Hammett plays with the energy of a teenager who never learned to slow down. For Bonamassa, that rang true. Technique was never the point, taste was, and Hammett, in Joe's eyes, never developed the variety that separates great players from good ones. Metallica will always be giants, their riffs carved into the DNA of heavy music. But for Joe Bonamassa, Hammett's solos symbolized excess without refinement. To him, they were not statements, they were placeholders. And that is why Kirk Hammett remains a name etched onto his blacklist. Number 2, Slash. The top-hatted icon of Guns N' Roses was another figure Joe could not embrace. Slash had tone, presence, and cultural impact. But Bonamassa could not shake the feeling that his playing was more attitude than depth. In his eyes, the blues phrasing was surface level, never reaching the marrow. He once summarized it brutally. Slash made the Les Paul cool again, but not the blues. To Joe, that was unforgivable. Slash's legend was sealed with appetite for destruction. His riffs defined a generation, and his solos, especially on songs like November Rain and Sweet Child O' Mine, are instantly recognizable. Yet for Bonamassa, they epitomized image over essence. He once remarked, "Wearing a hat does not make you a bluesman. Playing with honesty does."
Well, you fill in the gaps and you fill in in information sometimes gets corrupted.
Joe respected Slash's charisma but found his playing shallow. He argued that true blues phrasing came from players who carried lived pain into every note. For him, Slash's licks echoed blues style without its scars. Critics have even echoed this divide. One reviewer wrote, "Slash is more icon than innovator, more silhouette than soul." It was not about dismissing Guns N' Roses. The band's power was undeniable. But for Bonamassa, Slash represented a kind of surface-level blues rock that never dug into the roots. Joe believed the guitar was supposed to bleed, not pose. And when he heard Slash, he often felt more fashion than fire. Slash will always be remembered as a rock icon. But for Bonamassa, that iconography overshadowed the raw truth of the music. And that, to him, was the ultimate betrayal. The moment when style drowned out substance and the blues was left behind. Number 1, Jimi Hendrix. The revelation stuns most. Hendrix is worshipped as the greatest. But Bonamassa's distaste is philosophical. He never denied Hendrix's originality, he resented the mythology. To Joe, Hendrix became a religion that stifled other voices. Every young guitarist was told to worship at the Hendrix altar, leaving little room for subtle masters like B.B. King or Albert Collins. "I never hated Hendrix the man," Joe once said. "I hated the cult." That distinction explains everything. For Bonamassa, the problem was not Hendrix. It was the way he overshadowed the soul of the blues itself. Hendrix's rise was meteoric. In just a few years, he rewrote what electric guitar could do: feedback, distortion, controlled chaos. Songs like Voodoo Child and Purple Haze were not just music, they were cultural detonations. Yet for Bonamassa, the aftershocks buried quieter traditions. He once remarked, "Every kid was told to copy Hendrix. No one was told to study Albert Collins."
When I would listen to like Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters, and I would listen to Guitar Slim, and I would listen to, all the traditional blues artists.
Joe never denied Hendrix's genius. He acknowledged the innovation, the charisma, the audacity of the Star-Spangled Banner at Woodstock. What he resisted was the canonization, the way Hendrix became untouchable, the single entry point for new guitarists. For someone who built his craft on lineage, it felt like history rewritten at the expense of nuance. One critic observed, "Hendrix gave the guitar its wings, but his shadow clipped others from taking flight." That thought aligned with Joe's view. Hendrix's brilliance was both a gift and a cage. For Bonamassa, Hendrix was less a man than a monument, and monuments, no matter how mighty, can suffocate. He wanted the blues remembered for its variety, its flaws, its human voices. But Hendrix's legend swallowed the room. and that is why Jimi Hendrix remains the most surprising name on Joe Bonamassa's blacklist. Joe Bonamassa's blacklist is not about gossip. It is about principle. Each name he singled out reveals his belief that the guitar must tell the truth. To him, speed without feeling, style without substance, or mythology without balance are betrayals of the instrument he devoted his life to. In a world where legends are worshipped and images replace authenticity, Bonamassa's perspective reminds us that music is not about fame, but honesty. His criticism may sound harsh, but beneath it lies reverence, a demand that the guitar remains sacred, uncorrupted by vanity. So, the question lingers. Is greatness about invention or integrity? For Joe, the answer is clear. The guitar should never impress. It should confess. Which of Bonamassa's choices resonates most with you? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories that uncover the soul of music.